say.
I
'Cause I
got
have-
something
you know
that said that Brad, you wanna start us up and we'll get going?
I'll call the Board of Selectmen's meeting to order of September 9th, yeah. And we'll start off with reading our preamble. Good evening. As Chairman of the Wolfboro Board of Selectmen, I'm declaring that an emergency exists and I'm invoking the provisions of RSA 91-A:2-3B. Federal, state, local officials have determined the gatherings of 10 or more people pose a substantial risk to our community and its continuing efforts to combat the spread of COVID-19. In concurring with the determination, I also find that this meeting is imperative to the continued operation of town government and services, which are vital to public safety and confidence during this emergency. As such, this meeting will be conducted without a quorum of this body physically present in the same location. At this time, I also welcome members of the public access this meeting remotely. Even though this meeting is being conducted in a unique manner under unusual circumstances, the usual rules of conduct and decorum apply. Any person found to be disrupting this meeting will be asked to cease the disruption. Should the disruptive behavior continue thereafter, that person will be removed from this meeting. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. We'll start the meeting by taking a roll call vote of attendance. When each member states their name, please state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. We'll start with Linda.
Yes, I'm here. I'm in a room by myself, and I have a cat who may come and go.
Okay. Paul.
I'm here. I'm in a room all by myself.
Dave.
Yeah, I'm here by myself, but there's a chance Abby could wander through here.
Okay. Dave Bowers, are you with us this evening? I haven't seen him log on yet.
You'll see him, Brad. Yep.
Oh, and I'm Brad Harriman. I'm also here in a room by myself this evening. So, on our agenda here this evening, we will be, my agenda back up. We'll be meeting as basically as the Libby trustees of Libby this evening. There we go. And so at this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Paul, chairing the trustees of Libby Museum.
Okay, thank you, Brad. I appreciate that. And good evening, everybody. So this is a Libby trustees meeting. The reason we're having this session is for the benefit of the public as well as for my colleagues. We had asked Alba Architects to give us a second view, I don't mean to use a word downscope view, but a different view of what to do with the Libby project. For those of us who remember, we had 4 initial options. One was just simply fix it up and keep going along as is. And another option at the other end was to look at a kind of a modified building, which left us really with 2. We have one which was a presentation that Alba gave us last year, almost about this time, and that option included expanding the Libby, and that the price tag on that at the time, without any contributions, came in around $2.9 million. It may be off a little bit, but that's about the number. We all agreed that we wanted to get a different view. And so we have that different view now. We had expected that view on or about the 23rd of August. And you know how things happen. It didn't come together. We were going to take that, we were going to have this meeting earlier before, following 23rd of August, had we had that earlier view. We didn't get it. And the next step is to review this this updated plan from ALBA. We will meet as select people next week. We will help craft a decision as a board of selectmen as to which plan we are going forward with. And then Katrina and I think Jim, you're going to be speaking on behalf of the board with the Capital Improvements Committee. There will be a Capital Improvements Committee meeting, at which time this whatever plan ultimately gets decided upon by the Board of Selectmen is going to go forward. That's kind of where we are. So we're not going to do a lot of public input during this session. We can do it when we have our Board of Selectmen meeting. Really, the purpose here is to get soaked in the second view that ALBA has put together. We are in receipt of a letter and a bunch of files that came in from ALBA. And I see, who is on the phone with us tonight?
Phil Bennett.
Hey, Phil, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
That's good. And I have a question. I have a finger up in the air from a member of the staff, from Katrina. Do you have a question?
Hi, this is just a technical thing. I just got a text that the link isn't on the Town of Wolfboro website, and so some people are having difficulties getting onto this meeting.
Okay.
The link to get on this
Okay.
meeting is right on the homepage. If they pick the yellow option, when you open the page, it says how to get on a virtual meeting.
Thanks, Katrina. I appreciate that. So,
Paul, could I
Brad?
just,
Yeah,
Paul,
please.
could I just ask if either Katrina or Tom could, maybe email that information over to at least Alana, and I think Kari were the two trying to get on with us. They were having difficulty here. I kind of gave them a quick number as we were getting started, but they could send that information to them. That would be appreciated.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thanks for bringing that up, Katrina. Appreciate it. So I think for tonight, first of all, we need to get a little more into this alternative proposal we have, and then a question that we're not going to make a decision, but I'd like us to, as Libby trustees, I'd like us to try to, in our minds, think about, which we won't decide tonight, but think about what is the decision-making criteria that we should consider as we come together and figure out what the path forward is for the Libby. I'd like us to do that if that's possible, folks. I'll help us along with that, because I think if we at least have some criteria in our hands, in our minds, when we come to the table next week, all of us can have a very full and fruitful conversation, and hopefully that's fair. So, Jim and Linda?
Yeah, I'm confused. I have two things that were sent to me. One was starting at 6:30 p.m. That was the meeting of the trustees of the Libby Museum. Then I received another notice that says at 7:30, a regular session, directly following the Libby Board of Trustees meeting. And then it says non-public session. So I'm confused exactly what we're doing here. Are we going, there was a notice, so I'm assuming we're going into a regular session after the Libby, which is one where we could make a decision, I guess is where I'm coming from.
I think Brad, Brad, should you have mentioned we're going into a non-public after this meeting?
You know, I can answer that if you like, Jim. The way I understand it is after our discussion here, as trustees, we'll go back into our regular meeting here, so we can.
Yes.
Next thing on the agenda was going to be to approve the minutes of August 12th, and then Jim did send out a notice here that we do have a need for non-public this evening, which we will go into at the end of that. So basically, we're going to go back into our public selectmen's meeting to hit the minutes, and then go into non-public to go through the issue that Jim wants to bring up with us this evening.
Okay, but we would leave this meeting. We would go into a regular public meeting. We could, if we wanted, at that point, make a decision if we come to some kind of. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we realized that was also
It's
an
possible.
option, because it was noticed at 7:30.
We could do that. But I had assumed that bad on my part. I assumed that we were going to just adjourn this meeting, move into a minutes discussion, and then move into non-public. But if it's the consensus of the board of selectmen at that time to come to a decision, we'll do it. We can do that. So Jim, how do you want to handle the briefing on, and Phil, how do you want to handle the briefing on the updated proposal?
So I believe, I just want to confirm that all members of the board have received the documents from Alba Architects, which is a document from Cobb Hill Construction, a set of plans and cost sheets that gave the comparison of the 2020 proposal versus the 2021 proposal, with the 2020 proposal dropping off the L-chip requirements.
That set of documents came out on September 2nd. So you all should have them and should have read them. And again, as Jim was asked, we wanted to, and I think it was either Katrina or somebody had asked before, can we normalize the document so that we're not looking at L-chip costs in document A and non-L-chip costs in document B? And that's been, from what I understand, Jim, and Alba, that's been taken care of.
That is correct, Paul. And from this point, I think it's a matter of, if the trustees have questions regarding the proposal here, I believe Phil from Alba is on, as he indicated. He should be able to try to answer some of these questions that you as the trustees may have, and go from there.
Yep. Do we have any questions from the trustees on the document? David?
So the information we have is basically, from what I understand, we've taken out the L-chip requirement.
Correct.
So we've gone from 2.9 to 1.9. Basically the same overview.
No.
That doesn't seem right.
No. So the 2.9, just forget about the L-chip.
Right.
2.9 was the expanded Libby. The 1.9 does not have an expansion in the back of the Libby. It has a modest expansion for heating, ventilating, air conditioning. Brad?
I was going to say there's still an addition on the back of the building.
Correct.
According to this.
Yes.
And I have some
HVAC.
questions on some of the divisions, but we can get into those later if you want, and also some of the exclusions.
We'll do it now. Go ahead. Do it now.
Okay, exclusions: fire alarm system, period correct wood frame, winter conditions, generator, movable and storage, reinstallation of the exhibits, professional services, architectural, civil, structural engineering. That to me is going to be another pretty good nut over and above 1.9. That doesn't seem to make sense. And then,
And hang on, just for clarity, Dave, for clarity, Phil, was these exclusions also in the, I'm going to use the 2.9, were these exclusions also in the 2.9? And Linda's saying yes. I just want to hear it for the record. The answer is?
Yes, there were. But I want to be clear that we did have what we call the soft costs, which are all the consultant fees. That is on another sheet that I provided on this to Jim on the first as well.
That's the
It's-
308,000?
Correct, 309,000, correct. And that's basically the same soft costs that we carried in the original version. So we're trying to make these like for like as much as possible, with the only
Dave-
difference being the reduced size and the L
Dave
chip.
Senical, and Phil, keep me honest here, what Alba did is these exclusions, as you call them, tallied up to 309 grand. On the last page, well, there was other things in there, soft cost estimates. What they did is they're out of both proposals. So it's not just that they're out of proposal B, they're out of proposal A as well as proposal B.
So we're saying those lists of soft costs is the $309,885. That's all
Right.
those things that he talked about exclusion. Is
Is that
that
correct,
right?
Phil?
It's not all of them, no. The soft cost, we didn't put the fire alarm in either of those soft costs. And the period correct wood frame windows, unfortunately, during the original pricing, we thought that they had included that, but they ran out of time and carried the number that they had. So the windows are more or less the same in both projects. They probably wouldn't have satisfied L-chip. So it wasn't really, it's an exclusion in this one, but it was also an exclusion in the previous one because it was overlooked.
Would-
Go ahead.
Linda?
But there are windows in there. They're just not the type that are excluded in your exclusions.
There are windows priced there. They're not what would be considered historically acceptable. But they're vinyl windows.
So the way I process this, and again, Phil, help me and keep me honest here. The way I process this, and there's other things that Mr. Senical wants to table. I read in the note that, the costs that are provided probably are not a good reflection of last year's cost because of inflation and material shortages. So I kind of got that. But when I looked at trying to compare the two, if you will, prices, the price for the expanded Libby is $2,908,497, and the price for the reduced Libby, reduced scope, as you called it, is $2,275,462, resulting in a distance between the two, not including the fire alarm system, which you'd have to plug in on either side, of $633,000.
Correct.
Okay. And then if you pull out the soft costs, the 309,000, which you get on either side of the equation, then the math problem kind of goes, the expanded Libby was 2.598612, which is taking out, I think, the L-chip, from the original cost estimate. And
No.
the reduced is, no.
No, the 2.598 is taking out the 309 soft costs.
Taking out the 309 soft costs.
If you got the sheet that's on our title block, the Alba Architects,
Yep. I got it.
So-
No, I see it.
yeah, you'll notice that both of them have original soft cost of 309,885.
So the distance between the two, the expanded Libby and the scope reduced Libby is $633,000.
Correct.
Before you add in a fire suppression system before you add in,
Okay, you have to
any other
interrupt.
costs above and beyond that, which would go on both sides of the ledger.
Correct.
Hello,
Mr.
this is
Senecal,
Christy Bowers, and Julie Jacobs is waiting to get on. She doesn't have a link, and the rest of them have no link to come into this meeting. And I'm on the phone with her, and she said that it's important that they come to the meeting.
So the link is available on the town website. In the right-hand toolbar, they scroll down, it'll say virtual meetings. Click on the select board meeting. That's where you will access this.
Okay. They all went there, there's no link there, and the link that came with the agenda doesn't work. And they're all calling each other. Can an email be sent to them with the link?
Yeah, I could if I knew the email address, but I'm looking at the webpage right now and it's there, so I'm not
Okay,
sure.
there's a web page that's down.
I can't turn on my camera.
Here, I'll have Dave.
I can't turn on my camera if I hit it.
Okay.
That's all right. You don't need to see me.
They're on the, she's on the website of the town. And you said it's at the bottom right corner?
Mr. Senecal,
Yes,
you had more questions.
I do. I'll just go through them and then see what we come up with at the end.
Thank you.
I've got permitting costs, page 1, $9,594. On page 2, safety and security officer. I don't quite understand all that, but that's okay. $17,170. And on 2073, asbestos removal. I'm assuming that we're gonna take the roof off the building and put a whole new roof on it. Is that my understanding? It is in both things, I think. That's $138,217. Building movers, 2150, 96,814. And then I got all the rough framing, air proofing, glazing. And then on page 6, HVAC, $262,449. Boy, that seems awful high. And then on page 7.
And the HVAC in the first one was 292,054. Are we looking at the same page, Dave?
Yes.
Yeah,
believe
okay.
so.
Yep.
Then on page 7, complete electrical. There's no explanation on any one of these as to what it really is, but I'm assuming the electrical complete, $209,959.
And in the
Wow.
original estimate, it was 274,546.
I know, but what is it? It doesn't tell me. This is probably a 400 amp service. It's probably underground. It's probably some subfeed panels. There's nothing here to tell me what it is. I don't like that. It's the same with the HVAC. Doesn't tell me anything about what it is. Is it propane? Is it electrical? Is it, what is it? I can't fathom these numbers without some kind of explanation. Even the electrical, as much as I do and deal with it, I just can't, the numbers are just, some of these numbers are horrendous. That, from my perspective. And that's why I'm bringing it up, because these are areas that, you know, and I know asbestos removal and stuff can be pricey. I don't know, same with the shoring up with the building movers. What does that mean? How high are they gonna lift the building? You know, what are they doing? They're gonna just stabilize it? I don't have any more information than that. And then the addition on the back, You know, I understand that and the framing and the steel and all that stuff. And I'm
Okay.
assuming that
I don't want it. I can.
when they tear it all apart, that, you know, they're gonna do something with bracing, all of that stuff, which I know was part of the other one. But it seems like all of that's gonna be part of this proposal as well. Am I being misled somewhere? I guess I need an explanation.
So the way I interpret, and Phil, again, keep us honest here. So what Phil provided to us was a document that did a side-by-side pricing out. Whether we like the numbers or not is not relevant at the moment. Did a side-by-side pricing out of what the expanded Libby versus the reduction in scope Libby were, side-by-side prices. Now, whether we agree with the numbers or think that they're too high, too low, not enough, whatever those, I think is a different conversation. And I think that's what you're poking at. These numbers seem awfully big, and without the detail of understanding what you get for a complete rewiring of the building, probably is something we want to look at. But for comparison purposes, you know, we got comparison numbers. We may not like them. I guess, and I can hear from Dave. I don't think he likes them. He wants more detail. Linda, did you have your hand? You do. You got your finger up.
I guess my feeling is on some of the figures don't look any different than when I went back to the OLBA packet from last time. You know, those are the kind of, and I think as you get to doing a design and you go out to bid, I think we would get some more of that. I think that Dave is looking for. I guess my concern is the size of the addition off the back. And can you give me, Alba, an idea of what the cost was just for that addition on the back? I know it was to somehow anchor the building, but it looks like a lot of square feet to me.
Well, no, at this point, I couldn't give you the breakout of the addition. We didn't do that. Can I just give a little background on what our understanding of what we were doing?
Sure.
Basically, these numbers are based on the same building as the original one, except the addition got significantly smaller. So all the mechanical systems are the same as they were in the original one, only there's a slight reduction in their size because they're serving a smaller building. All the electrical is the same as the original building, only slightly smaller because it's serving a slightly smaller building. So all those specs and details are in the package of the original bid, the original pricing. It wasn't a bid, but the original pricing, all that information is in that package. But each of these elements have been reduced for the consideration of the smaller addition. The main building, the renovation of the existing building, obviously didn't get any smaller except the mezzanine was taken out. But all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing elements really don't change for the existing building. They're exactly the same. It's the same amount of lighting. So the only change in these various components is that the addition is smaller, the HVAC system is slightly smaller, the electrical is smaller. And we didn't give all that information here because we were trying to give you a simplified comparison of what this smaller stripped down version would cost versus the original one. And the
I think you
price
answered Linda's question. Linda's question was, I saw these numbers before, I'm seeing them again. So that's an answer. And then in terms of, you also did an adjustment though. So you made the numbers smaller because of a reduction in size, but you also made an adjustment to the numbers because of the L-chip issue. Is that correct?
there are some adjustments due to the L-chip, yes.
Okay. No. Okay. Linda, finger up in the air again?
No, let somebody else talk for a while. I'm still thinking.
Mr. Harriman.
Yeah, I had a question, speaking, we just talked about the L-chip thing. The original number we had of the original budget cost of the 2.598 or 2546, whichever one is the correct one there. That included the L-chip requirements in that. Is that correct, Phil?
Well, and yeah, I mean, at the time, it was not made clear to us by Cobb Hill that they didn't include the period wood windows. But other than that, everything was done to the requirements of L-chip. The windows probably would have been underpriced at that point.
Is there any way of, without really digging all through this whole thing, into ballpark what that number would be without the L-chip requirements for the remainder of the work, taking out the, minus the window portion? So we could have more of an apples to apples, because our 1.965 number already has that built into it, that it's not L-chip compliant, I guess, for lack of a better term. So we could, to get a ballpark to compare to the 2598 being, not L-chip compliant. Kind of see what I'm getting at?
It's possible. I couldn't give you that number right now, but it is possible.
Okay.
Okay, so again, the distance between the two, minus this conversation that Brad is having, the distance right now is $633,000 between the two, roughly speaking. It could be 650, it could be 600, it could be 700, it could be 500, but we're north of 600,000, the distance between the two. Okay. Linda.
Yeah, if I looked at, and I pulled out some of my figures for the last go round, and the addition, that larger one, was 1.316. And this one now, that's why I was asking the question of how much that addition costs now. That's why I was trying to compare how much we had taken off of that 1.3.
I think I remember you had a conversation with us last year. We were trying to sort that out, and we were trying to figure out what a reduced scope would be. And I think you said, well, if we pulled out the 1.3, that's what the building would cost us. I think I remember that discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that would have been a 1.5, and that was the number I had in my head and thinking that would come in. And then I took the 1.5 and I took, 300,000, which we have in our capital reserve. If the Friends could raise 400 to 500,000, we're looking at about 700 to 800 for the taxpayer. That was where my head was moving on this, and this number is significantly higher than that. So
I remember the math. I remember the math exercise. I remember what you were doing. So it's higher, and I was surprised too, because I was remembering your narrative of, I think we were at 1.315, and then when I saw the number came in, I went, whoa, this is awfully big. But it is what it is, and as Phil said, when we get into looking more deeply into this, we're going to find an upward push on materials, or we're going to find a downward push on, we get some efficiencies of doing the building. But right now we have two planning numbers. The distance between the two is $600,000. Mr. Bowers, I think, has joined us.
I've been here, but I can't get my camera on, but I've been here all along.
We're so glad you're with us. Thank you. Okay, so any other questions from the trustees? Dave Senecal, do you need more texture on your information from Phil before we go forward here?
No, I'm all set for right now.
Okay.
I'm just having a big problem with the numbers.
Because they're big numbers.
The big numbers.
And Phil, it's not I don't think it's a criticism to you. Mr. Senecal happens to live in this world of code enforcement and buildings, and kind of has some gray hair, although it may not be in his head right now. He's got some gray hair and experience in the area, so that's probably why he's poking at it. And I'm glad you are, Dave. Thanks. So, trustees, what criteria would we recommend to ourselves as boards of selectmen? What criteria would we use to determine whether it's project A, project B, or something else? What would be the criteria that we'd like to put on the table? Visitor traffic. That would be one of my criteria. Visitor traffic. Trends in visitor traffic. Any other criteria? I offered one.
I think operating costs per year.
Operating costs per year. And I think we have those, but these are operating costs as a business, as a building, I should say. Didn't think there was, these were sent in by Alba.
Right, but they didn't have the interest and principal payment. And they had a figure of 13,000, and if you made it smaller, you do 10, but that didn't include the interest and principal payments.
Okay. So the operating cost, which would include the carrying cost of the building. So not only the salaries and the expense to run it, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning, but also the debt burden that this particular building would carry. I would want to see, what are we doing for visitor traffic? Because, and I say this for the other people who are watching, that the decision we have to make is going to be based on a lot of calls for capital across the town. We're treating this as a building right now. And there are going to be other people that are going to come in and call for, for capital. So we're just trying to get the criteria that we want to use here set, so that we're all clear that when we take a decision, we've done it with good purpose. Linda.
Yeah, you would also want to know what this building can generate in terms of revenue. What is the revenue stream? We're getting back to kind of your management plan, but how much revenue could this, we could raise the rates. Is that, reasonable? How high could they go and still bring the same number of people?
Right. And Brad or Dave or Jim, any other criteria that you would like to offer?
This is Dave Bowers. I have a fair amount of historical attendance data going back to the many, many years for the museum. If I can dig it out and email it to everybody. I don't think it gives a heck of a lot of guidance to what we should be doing, but the numbers vary quite dramatically. There was a couple weekends going back 30, 40 years where there'd be 5, 6, 7,000 people there on a weekend. That in the 1920s when people went on automobile tours and it was on the map, hey, when you go on the tour of New Hampshire, be sure to stop at the Libby. Of course, that's not on the map that way anymore.
Okay. One I would want to know is, what is the capital cost for the town? And that would be the gross number. And then what is the net number that we would look at from pledges and other contributions, so that we could go to the voters and we could say, here's the gross capital cost, here's the net number. And Linda, I'm going to put you on the spot. What's the normal, if there's such a thing as normal, on average, like when the Friends did the library and the Friends did the town hall, if it was $100, what percent of that total $100
ran between 20 to 25%?
Okay.
For those two, where the Abenaki, it was over half.
So for Abenaki, it was over half. Okay. And how much was Abenaki when it was done? When you did it, how much was the Abenaki?
About 500,000 or so, and they ran maybe almost 600. One was brought in about 350. The other was 281. Somewhere in those figures.
So the bigger the building, the bigger the capital side,
yeah,
the lower the percentage. right? So town hall, $100, 20%, 200,000 on every million,
Oh.
right? And Friends of Library, you know, I'm just so I don't have to get into complicated math. $100, 200,000 on every million. So I would think a criteria we'd probably want to look at would be, you know, town capex, and then what can we see for, you know, pledged dollars. Anybody else? Brad, Dave, Jim? Anybody else?
I think I just want to put out the, you know, this, I don't think we can look at this museum as being like a you know, like a revenue generating fund for the town. I mean, it's going to bring in some funds, but it's never going to sustain itself. I don't think it was ever set up that way, just for the type of exhibits it is, and the size of it and everything, and its locality, locale too. I just don't see that being a, you know, the type of thing that's going to generate, you know,
Millions.
$50,000, $100,000 a year in revenue there. I have heard before, I can't remember what they are, what the revenue figures are for the museum on an annual basis. Maybe Kat might know some of those. But, you know, I think I don't know, because I wasn't obviously around. I was only a year old in '56 when this thing was taken over by the town. So, you know, I just said, you know, it was taken over and run by the town because it's a neat thing for the town to have, for the, you know, for the taxpayers and for the people who want to visit it. So,
Thank you. Mr.
about
Senecal.
it.
Well, there's going to be the people that are going to say, okay, the museum's been there for 100 years or more, hasn't fallen down yet, and with all the snow and wind and everything we've had, why do we need to do anything to it? There are those people out there, certainly.
Mhm.
And, you know, and I certainly have said that there's some things that need to be done there,
Mhm.
especially structurally.
Yeah.
But, you know, do we need to get into a year-round building? Do we need to have exhibits year-round? Do we need the expenses of a year-round building? And as you said, Paul, those are all things we need to know. At least I want to know before I make a complete decision.
Mhm.
If I were to make a decision today, I know what it would be.
Mhm.
But I think that there's quite a few people who say, hey, you know, we don't care. It's not falling down. The roof hasn't caved in with snow loads, certainly that we've had.
Yeah.
So why do we need to put a new roof on it?
So just
You
for
know,
clarity,
legitimate question.
yeah,
Somebody
it is
needs
a legitimate question. Yeah, very legitimate.
somebody needs an answer.
So for
Foundation.
clarity, I don't think there was ever a talking point that said this would be a year-round operation. However, in order to protect the exhibits, you have to have environmental controls throughout the year. So that
Yes.
cost goes up, but you know, the cost of people coming into the building would go up. Ms. Murray.
Yeah, when I said revenue, right now it brings in about last year it brought 4,700 and I think it's $30. You add, it costs more to run it. So you would look at the same kind of ratio, needing to pick up your admission to try to keep yourself even. Brad, at no time did I see this museum as a museum that would self-fund itself. But
Yeah.
we need to take a look at the cost to the taxpayer and the revenue that we might be able to charge in order to offset that. So that was where I was going with that, to see, you know, where we are. There was some conversation, and I'll be with Dave Senecal, of expanding the number of weeks this museum was open. Maybe not all year, but when I looked at the LCHIP grant, it definitely was talking about an extended year. And I think we even got some figures to look at if we had the executive director. And I think that's the question. Are we going to keep it a 13-week small summer museum, and we're putting this kind of money into that? Or are we saying, no, we're going to make it a little bit more, it's going to go more than 13 weeks. It may go 25 weeks, take more of the shoulder season. And we're going to expand the programs and stuff we're going to do there because we've just now upgraded this facility.
Mhm. So is it fair, Linda, that your criteria, instead of revenue, would your criteria be, can we get this thing to getting close to breaking it even?
No, the
No?
percentage between what our costs are today with the revenue, that when our costs go up, we try to generate equal percentage of revenue. So we
Mhm.
don't go backwards. And I don't know if that's possible, but that's why I was looking at revenue. How much could we raise the revenue, and how much would that offset? So that's why I'd like to look at revenue and see where that took us.
So anybody else, Brad, Jim, Dave, any of the Daves have any other criteria? I'll put some mooses on the table. And this is unfair, so I'm not going to disclose any of the numbers, but some research has been done that was provided to us that has given us, dating back to 1956, visitor traffic. Also dating back to 1956, revenues. And also dating back to 1956, warrant articles. If you sum the numbers, and and I'm not gonna, bias the conversation, but I definitely would look at that. And I would ask myself, how much money have we put into it? And I agree it's a museum. How much money, how much value has it created in terms of visitor traffic? And is it to the point that the town has either not invested enough, which is entirely possible, although some numbers may belie that, or that the town has invested adequate resources in this museum is going to just simply be what it is and nothing more. Not that that's a good thing or a bad thing. It is going to be what it is and nothing more. And if it's going to be what it is and nothing more, then it struggles against other capital calls that will come to the table. Linda.
Well, I'd add a thing. What is the value of the Libby to the community?
Correct.
And to what degree will the people of this community reach in their pockets and provide money to keep this museum open? And I look at Abenaki. When I came onto the board, there was no snowmaking. They were about ready to pull the insurance and close the hill. When the people of the community heard that, they went out and raised the money for snowmaking. They raised the money for a groomer, and they raised the money for the lodge because it had a value to the town. And I'm not sure what the value to the town is of the Libby Museum, but once the Friends of the Libby go out to raise the money, that will give us a better idea that value to the community. Who's stepping up, putting their hands in their pocket, giving money, because this is an important asset to the town. And I think that's an important element that it's very hard to put in your charts of what we need to look at. But I think community value, which is not a dollar amount, is part of what we're looking at here.
Okay. Anything else from a criteria point of view? I agree, by the way, that and I would say, just as to give everybody a hall pass here, prior fundraising efforts, take them off the table, because we have a new and improved interest in doing this. I have to believe that all prior efforts were well-intentioned, but probably didn't get as much thought leadership as we're squirting all over it now. So it would be unfair to say, well, you never raised money in the past, ergo you can't do it in the future. I don't think that's necessarily the way we'd look at it. But I agree with Linda we gotta determine what the value is, and the way to determine the value is, does the community stand up and rally? Because if it doesn't stand up and rally, then we might have to, then we have a different discussion to take place. I think Dave Senecal had his hand up. Did you have your hand up, Dave? You were just shooing your cat away? Okay, very good. All right, so that's kind of where we're at. Any last thoughts?
Yeah.
Linda?
Yeah, I mean, if I look at that, and I'm willing to step out here, when I look at it, I would say without a doubt, we have to go to option B. $600,000 less for the building, I think is significant in my mind. And it's more, you would be better able to go out and fundraise that amount. Because that's where I am.
Okay. Yeah, and we're not here to, we're not making decisions here, but my sense is that, let me ask a question of Linda, because you know this. What's the average annual capital, whether it's bonded or non-bonded? What do we average spend per year in the town for capital?
We usually spend 200,000 in cash. 2 million in cash, excuse me, 2 million in cash. That's what we do.
2 million in cash.
And,
2 million in
and
cash.
bonding based on, we bond for the electric. It's hard to do that, but that's the amount of cash that we spend, 2 million.
So what I did this afternoon is I ran some numbers looking back over warrant articles, including enterprise fund stuff, which could be or could not be fair or unfair to stick it in there. We're probably cash and bond somewhere between 5 and 6 a year. So if this came to the table at 2, that would be a big slug of the town's cash capital for a year. And because this is a kind of a challenge, I think, to the Friends and to all of us, if we treat it as a building project, then it's going to get teed up with other building projects. If we treat it as a community project, and we can see some solid evidence that there's going to be some serious pledge activity, that's a different conversation. But 2 as a percentage of 6, that's 30% of the town's annual capital to a building that, now I'll be unfair and use Dave Senecal's words against him, where people would say, it's $2 million, it isn't falling down, it doesn't have a lot of visitors, sure, it has value to the town, but nobody's putting money into it from donations. We need to prepare ourselves, if we were to decide to do something here, for that narrative. And if we're not prepared for that, then when it goes to the voters, I would suspect that the voters would probably roundly give a thumbs down, and then we're going to have a, oh my God, now what do we do conversation, which I don't think we want to go to, because I don't think we're prepared to even have that chat yet.
And let me go at it this way. You looked at the library. Well, I'll do the town hall, started at 6.5 million. And we worked our way down to 4 million, and it was sellable. The library started at 8 million. They went out and did public input sessions, and they got the read from the public, from the town, that it didn't have community support at that number. And they went back, they did all new designs, came back with one at 5, and they had the community support. So where you start from, a lot of time, you're at a lower figure than what you really ideally would want. And I think that happened with the town hall, happened with the library. I'll bet you money it's going to happen with the public safety building. It's what happens when you have projects. The public like to see that you're getting done what you need to do, but you're doing it for the least amount of money that you can.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Brad, anything? Mr. Bowers, anything from you? I think we lost him. I don't see him.
Another question I'd bring up, Paul, I know this is get a little more technical and stuff, but on the foundation portion of this building, just to know what kind of space we're talking about down there. I know there's figures in here to jack the building up, do foundation, put a slab underneath it. We're looking at getting a crawl space, or we're getting a portion of it at full depth. Is there going to be some usable space down there? You know, things like that, I think would be along with what Dave wants to know too on electrical and plumbing and HVAC and stuff. Some of these more details that we really need to know, so we know what we're getting for our dollar too here and stuff.
Yeah, so Phil, fair questions by both, Dave and Brad. I'm leading the witness here, but is the foundation that is being proposed for building project A and building project B the same?
It is.
Is the electrical, you said the electrical system is just simply the couple of less circuits, but it's principally the same?
It is.
So Brad, it's a fair question that you should know, but the answer would be, if you said, well, we need more space in the basement, we need a full basement, then building project A goes up and building project B goes up. So you know what I mean?
So I just wanted to find out what there is there, what's planned now, how much space is there in it now?
Give us your thoughts on that, Phil. What will happen when it's done? What will the basement underneath that building look like?
Well, we can't raise the building any further without causing a lot of problems. We've got a front entryway that we weren't touching the stairs. We're utilizing the stairs. So that dictates what level we're at. Again, that was somewhat based on historic requirements. We could revisit that, but then we have the issue of going down is definitely going to be more expensive. As it was planned in both versions, the building is only lifted sufficiently to get new frost walls underneath it, and then it's brought back down to the same level. You would only have a crawl space with effectively a rat slab underneath in the area below the building in both solutions. It was never discussed that we would be looking at putting in a full basement in that, because as a historical element, it was a non-starter. In this exercise, we wanted to carry a comparative solution, so the existing building gets the same treatment in both versions, and the only cost differences are the addition. If you want to introduce a full basement, it is feasible. The historical things are not relevant at that point, but as you say, Paul, it's going to be more expensive.
Well, it's column A, column B. I mean, one could argue that, hell, let's just put in a full basement and see what that yields. I mean, we could keep doing that, and if that's what the Board of Selectmen want to do, we could do it. But column A and column B just keep going up, so the totals get bigger. The distance between the two may not change, but the totals just get bigger.
Right, fully agree with that. But again, we were trying to give something that was comparative to the original, and the original was being dictated by LCHIP. So yep. We never even considered a full basement on that version.
Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. I just wanted, I don't have my old sheets in front of me and stuff to see what the details were there, but I don't know how much, if there was any excavation planned on. I know we're locked in with the front entryway there and stuff, and I wasn't expecting to lift the building any higher, other than temporarily to block it up to put the foundation under it, and maybe do obviously some work under there for the slab and stuff to level it up some. So that's kind of where I was going with that. Just wanted to find out what we were getting for room in there. So
yeah, I guess the answer is not much.
Yeah.
Linda?
Yeah, I want to say that I think Alba did a nice job at giving us comparisons. We're kind of, asking all these questions, but when I got the material, I was able to go back to what I had before, and I could see the difference, and I went even back to my plans of last year. And so I want to thank you.
Yeah.
It's a hard decision for us and we may pick at it. But I think you did what I was looking you to do.
I agree with that very heartedly. I mean, it was clear to me, it was column A, column B stuff, which is great. So I didn't have to get a map and a flashlight to figure out what the difference was between the two. I was kind of in my mind trying to figure out how, how the algorithm worked. But I do appreciate the work that was done. And I do appreciate the fact that you gave us caveats that say construction costs could be a little higher because of materials and things of that nature, which makes a bunch of sense. Okay. All right, last round, and then I'll pass the gavel back to you, Mr. Harriman. Anybody else? Mr. Senecal, Murray, Jim, anything? Phil, did we miss anything? Anything we missed?
Not my understanding of what this exercise was about, just to get a comparison of how you could satisfy 90% or 80% of the program and still provide a building that suits or fulfills the requirements of a museum standard building. Certainly, I think this exercise achieved that, and I think although the numbers aren't going to be exact, there's a few things in that price we got back from Cobb Hill that we didn't have time to question, because you'll see in the date, it was on the 1st of September that we got that from them. So we had to run with it as it was. But I think there's room for further development if that's the direction that the trustees in the board decide to go. But I think you have the information is not significantly off. It's a reasonable in the ballpark comparison.
So it's a good order of magnitude for both building project A and B.
Yes.
And you just corroborated Linda's commentary, which says it normally town hall started at $1 gazillion and then it got rational. Not suggesting this is irrational, but things move, things change. Fundraising helps. Those are all things that could happen. All right, unless Mr. Harriman.
I just want a quick thing here. We have got some friends on with us here this evening, Paul. I don't know if you planned on having them ask any questions or not, or if we could at least tell them if we're going to have a type of meeting that we're going to have more out for public input and questions and answers at that time, or I'd like to address that. Yeah.
What's the trustees? A couple of questions, okay with you folks? Any
I
objection to
think
that?
that makes sense. I'm comfortable with that. I think they're here. We should hear from them.
Let's do it. Show of hands. Who wants to come in first? Lauren, put her hand up first.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I'll be quick because I've got to get down to dorm duty at Brewster tonight. So I wanted to share with you a couple things. I took a few notes while you were talking and had some questions about the museum that, boots on the ground were there. I was once the director for 7 years, so I do know the value of the museum to the community. But first, I really want to tell you why all those people came in 1920. And I'll tell you, it was because of the cootie bug. It was written up in not the Boston Globe, another Boston newspaper, to come to the Libby Museum to see the cootie bug that came from a letter that was sent from someone in the trenches, okay? In the letter was a little tiny cootie bug, and that's why they all came up, believe it or not, to be close to the guys in World War I to see the cootie bug. We have an exhibit and we have the actual article. It is the coolest thing. So I really want Dave Bowers, unfortunately he's not here to know that. So the other piece, somebody mentioned something about the cost to the town. Now we don't know future, but I think the museum's budget used to be around 40 or 30 something thousand, which isn't a whole lot to run the museum. Okay, previously, of course, that's going to go up, but the value to the town, and I got to tell you, is the kids programs. Okay, kids, we've had children in there who have never been to a museum before in their life. There was a little boy, that came in, and he was from New York City. His mother had rented a house up in Robin Acres. And he could not believe that little boy came over to the museum every single day for 2 weeks. He recognized the pigeons, I'll tell you, but he couldn't believe all the other birds, all those cool animals. He came every single day that his mother was renting. And she came down and she was like, oh my gosh, I've never seen my son like this. It cracked me up that he knew the pigeons, though, living in New York City. Huge thing. The kids, the school kids that come in September, and if we extend the season with heat, amazing. The kids from New Durham, the kids from the outlying schools that come to see the museum on the bus. Once we're rid of COVID, this has been like a huge thing for the museum, for the town. I really don't think, I agree with Mr. O'Brien. It's not the people of Wolfboro that appreciate the museum. And I think we have to put things like cooties out there so people can understand what the museum really and truly is. We also have increased, the other piece you need to know, and I'm almost done, is that the Friends, until the Friends came on, the museum was a dust trap. I'm sorry I don't mean to criticize the town, but for years and years, it was totally voluntary. But the Friends have been raising a lot of money. You're talking about the Friends of the Abenaki. If it wasn't for the Friends, we would not have any children's programs. They have purchased many exhibits to try to clean it up, upgrade, fix the falling apart tables. So the Friends, we have, I don't know, the Friends raised the money for the gazebo. Priscilla Griffin could make a phone call and raise $20,000 at the drop of a hat, and that is what they did when they added the gazebo. And you also have a group of friends that are extremely motivated to help in this project at this time. But a smaller museum with no classroom and less exhibit space it's not going to do what you need it to do, really. But that's for another day. My point here is that it would serve a lot more people as a 3-season place. We could get volunteers. You could have events, you could have weddings, you could have classes year round. I could come teach an art class in the afternoon. I'm dying to have a place I could teach an art class for the community. So, but I do agree that we've got to really get out there, and I don't know how, but get people excited about the museum. And it's really through the children. And that was Dr. Libby's thing. If you can inspire a child by looking at rocks. Jennifer Khaled, as a child, she saw the rocks at the Libby Museum, and that is what led her to her career today.
She turned into a business. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it goes on and on and on. It really does. I can tell you stories. And that's the stuff that the town, the selectmen, the trustees, people don't know. And it's magical there. The Libby Museum is magical. And you know, all this, we got to do the right thing. I appreciate the thought that has been put into this very much. But I just really want you to know you got to do the right thing. You've got partners right now with the Friends, very motivated. And we'll have to get that cootie bug out there. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Lauren. And Katrina, you had your finger up a couple of times. You have a question?
Hi. So I really appreciate the questions that you guys have been asking. And like Lauren has said, we do have a lot of the answers to those questions. I actually was doing some kind of preliminary research in the form of exit surveys this season, and from the information I gathered, it indicates we could absolutely double our admission rate, and especially if and when the expansion happens. So we could easily close the gap between the operation costs now and the operation costs with the new HVAC system. I would also, when we're looking at the value to the community, I would suggest that you look towards the master plan for the town of Wolfboro in 2019. There's actually an article in the Granite last week, and there'll be another one coming out tomorrow that outlines some of the goals in the arts and heritage chapter of the master plan and the ways in which the Libby Museum would help achieve those goals and help achieve the economic development that the goals or the master plan in general is trying to achieve. In the master plan, it also states that one of the goals for Wolfboro is to make it the museum hub of New Hampshire. And I think it would be a disservice to not put the effort and funds into trying to expand the capacity of the Libby. What really, what I struggle with these new numbers is that it would essentially be business as usual, and business as usual is already difficult. Our museum this year is beyond, and that's not including having the back room usually dedicated to kids space. It's used to display the newly restored fans this year. And we usually have a significant part of our museum dedicated to displaying local artists, as I'm sure you all know. And we don't have that this year. I actually put the Dr. Libby exhibit stuff where the artist space usually goes. So I am nervous to see next year how we're going to fit everything in that we would in a normal year in this museum. And if we don't take the opportunity to expand our exhibit space and have storage space so that we can accept more donations and have rotating exhibits, yeah, I'm nervous to see. There's really no way with this smaller model to grow the museum, to expand it, and to expand its value to the community. It is already such a valuable place to the community. Lauren, that was an amazing story about the little boy. And I mean, we see it as directors, we see it every day. We see these kids come in and they're kids and adults alike, honestly, their faces just light up. And we do have community stakeholders that are committed to helping fundraise, donating themselves, etc. I mean, we see our articles in the Granite all the time about it. And I think that the fundraising is there and that the community interest is there. And we just need to tease it out a little bit more.
Thank you. Thank you. Tom.
Yes. Thank you for taking a little input at this time. I'm a numbers guy, so I like to focus on the difference between the plans is $630,000 to round the number out. But the other numbers that are important is that it also represents almost 1,500 square feet less of exhibit space between the 2019 plan and the 2020 plan. And that when you look on a square foot basis, the cost per square foot of the renovation is significantly higher for the new proposed plan. And as Kat mentioned, the storage and workspace for collections is not there. There isn't adequate space for office space for staff. The local artist display area is gone. The dedicated space for children's program is gone. These are some things that Dr. Libby held dearly. The other thing that has kind of been avoided in this conversation is the elephant in the room. We have a substantial donor who would cover over 95% of that excess cost as long as there is the additional exhibit space in the museum, so that the two projects are essentially the same cost to the town and taxpayers and the additional fundraisers. Furthermore, the volunteer motivation to go out and do the fundraising and the ability to engage donors in substantial donations would be much easier for the larger expansion than for this new reduced plan. And that would further reduce the cost to the town and the taxpayers. So I think the 2019 plan has a clear vision for the future of the museum, and it's in line with Dr. Libby's legacy, and it makes the museum an asset to the town. The new proposal, I think, lacks the vision. It has many shortcomings, as I've mentioned, and it would ultimately cost the taxpayers more money. So I believe the way forward is clear, and that you should go with full expansion and engage the substantial donor to sign on as soon as possible to cover those excess costs.
Just so that I'm clear, the substantial donor would also bring along a lot more exhibits. Is that right?
Well, yes, there would be additional
Would the
exhibits.
museum then be able to rotate those exhibits out, or will we be? I'm not picking at you, but wouldn't we be filled up with new exhibit space?
We would have more exhibits and more attractive exhibits, and how it gets rotated around, I think that's a welcomed problem to have.
Sounds
But,
good.
You know, I think the cost between the two appears to be the same to the taxpayer, and you
Okay.
get a much better product with the 2019 version.
Okay.
That's
All right,
my
well,
opinion. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for that, Tom. Now, thanks for your passion when we I can see your head going, no. Thank you for your passion. This is not an easy discussion to have. So I'm going to park the unless anybody else, I haven't seen any green lights go on, so I think we're all set here. 90% of this meeting was we were talking about a building. And you know, Mr. Senecal and Mr. Harriman and Linda, we were poking around at the HVAC system and the windows. It was a building project. 10% of this time, which was where you were talking about running a museum. And as Lauren was telling me about little children, you know, with their eyeballs bugging out of their head, pardon the word, coming out of their, you know, their head, being excited. That's the narrative that I think we've all been kind of poking at you folks at is, if you want it to be a museum, plan it like a museum. You got to help us understand whether there's grateful donors out there. You've got to help us understand whether there's memberships. You've got to help us understand whether the amounts of money, either for the scale down or for the grand vision, is there. And having and bless that one person, phenomenal one person, but having one person that has a lot of stuff that goes in the box may or may not be the right strategy for the voter. You also have to handle this through the eye of the voter. But I love the idea that you want to run it like a museum. I sat on the right board, and I know what it's like when you have a director who, and like Katrina, who's passionate and who just says, my job is just not to fill up the space, but to run programs for kids. So you got work ahead of you. We got work ahead of ourselves. We have to make some decisions here about how we place and slot this project. So I thank everybody. We're a few minutes past our 7:30 time frame, which is normally my fault anyway. But I think we had a good conversation. With that, I'm going to turn the mic back over to Brad. Thank you, Brad.
All right, thank you, Paul. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, friends that joined us here tonight too. Sorry for the mix-up on the login information. Hopefully the people got it, could listen into it anyway and stuff. So that was good. So we'll go on to the next thing on our agenda is the consideration of the minutes of August 12th of 2020. Did everybody have a chance to look at them and see them there? Do we have any, Linda? I think you're muted, Linda.
Let me see if I can find them in all my papers I've got here. There we go. It is on page 2.
Yep.
It is the second to last sentence, and the first word needs to be conducive.
Conducive.
That's the only one I have.
Nothing
Anybody
here.
else have any?
All set.
I'd entertain a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Beat you to it.
Oh, so the other one's a second. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Do a roll call vote. Linda Murray,
Yes,
Paul O'Brien,
Yes.
Dave Senical,
Yes,
Dave Bowers. Are you still with us tonight?
I don't see him.
Lost him.
Yeah,
And
lost
Brad Hammer votes yes also.
Thank you, Brad.
Okay, thank you. So do we have any other business before the board this evening? Other than, I entertain a motion to go into non-public.
Hang on a second, just if I could, Brad,
Okay.
question.
Sure,
Jim, when
certainly,
is
Paul.
when's Libby teed up to go up in front of the CIP?
I believe it's next Thursday. I believe Katrina, myself, and Mr. Sullivan are scheduled to sit down on Friday morning to work on the CIP process, paperwork. Based on what I'm observing tonight, I'm not sure that we're ready to go to a construction project for 2021. So the question I have is, do we pursue continuing the capital reserve funding for 2021 versus a construction project?
But I assume we could put that on the agenda for Wednesday night's meeting to come to a little more clarity on that for you guys to talk about. Would you say Thursday you're gonna get together then? Oh,
Yeah,
Go before.
Friday we're gonna get together. We'll work on both models.
gotcha.
And from that point, what you as a board recommend is the direction we will head.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm kind of where Jim is. I'm not sure that I would be comfortable saying, yeah, let's go put this out for construction in 2021. I think whatever we put out there, we're going to get, it's going to fail. That's my personal opinion. It's going to fail. Because what's missing here, well, there's a lot of things missing. It's not criticism, they're just missing. The question for us is, I think you're right, Jim, is do we put more into the capital reserve side or not? And do we render clear what we think is the right construction model? Now I heard from a couple of our Friends of Libby people that it's the wrong model, and I'm not sure I understand why, other than, you know, we have rooms and things. I think that's kind of where I'm at. Right now I'm just not, I'm not to the point of saying, yeah, let's go put this on it's got to get done in 2021, because I think it would not prevail. You guys, I'm sorry, Linda.
yeah, I agree with you. That's where I'm coming. I don't think it's ready for 2021. I think that, and I'm also not into putting 300,000 in for another run at it. I'd be closer to 100,000, just from what I've seen that's coming down the pike on the CIP.
Yeah.
But I think what we're doing is, and maybe the thing is to take the two plans and build them out and see if we can get any feedback on them. We got feedback on the other one last time that we weren't going to get the budget committee or the on that, or the CIP committee. Maybe we, you know, see what they think of a possible, and try to get some feedback if that's even within range of where they are.
Yeah, and go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry. I'm running your meeting. Sorry.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I just want to follow up with what Linda said. I did some quick calculations with the bond bank for project, the modified project, the 1.9. That's going to be an annual bond payment of approximately $101,000 a year for 20 years, with a total interest payment of $313,000. The expanded project, as originally proposed at, I believe it was I don't have the number in front of me, but
2.5.
Yeah, and these are equating in the 300,000. That's 142,000 a year, with 442,000 in interest over a 20-year period. And that's at the current interest rates of 1.62. So, I think there's some merit to that $100,000 to $150,000 number.
Hey, Brad, something I
Yeah.
heard from a couple of people, and it kind of unnerved me a little bit. And I'm not trying to put words in people's mouths, but I thought I heard that it's either the 2.9 is the only way to go, and if you don't go 2.9, we're not going to raise any money, or we can't raise any money. It's not a, I'm sucking my thumb and throwing a hissy fit. It's 2.9, I can raise money. Not 2.9, I can't raise money. Difficult. I'd really like to get that clear.
Yeah, I don't think I heard it that way, Paul, but that's just how we heard it and stuff, I guess. So I think that's something we're gonna have to obviously continue our conversation on at another meeting and stuff here. So iron a lot of this stuff out.
We got to do it now, but I thought I heard that.
Yeah.
Linda? Yeah, go ahead.
Linda,
I thought I heard he could raise 90% of the addition. Did I hear them say that correctly? Not the
I think what
two-thirds
he
that
said-
we heard last year. He said,
Oh.
I thought he said 90% of the addition.
he said, what I heard him say, Linda, was that 633,000, the 600,000 coming from that grant was 90% of that, of the difference of the cost.
Difference of
That's
the
what
cost.
he,
Okay. Okay.
right, that's what he was talking about.
I didn't think he was saying the other, but thanks for clearing that up.
Well,
Yeah.
when it gets down to it, writing a number on a piece of paper is better than a percentage any day of the week. Right? So we'd want to know what that is. Anyways, that's what I thought I heard. And
Okay.
again, I'm not being anything other than I'm just trying to hear clearly. But I thought that for lots of reasons, the classrooms, the storage, all the accoutrements that have been taken out will make things difficult, plus other things. So over the next period, we really need to know if option B is a non-starter for the Friends, it's a non-starter. Good,
Yeah.
you need to know. Then
Think
it's option A only.
Conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a conversation we need to continue, obviously, and so we get everybody on the same page.
Yep.
Muted.
Anything else?
Move to go into non-public.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to go to non-public, roll call vote. Linda,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
and Brad votes yes also. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Kat, and we'll see you guys in a few minutes in the other room.